Greetings, Darklings, and welcome to The Vampire Castle, the only podcast of that name wherein I, Jamie Peck,
and I, Leslie III,
talk about all things vampiric. We're going to be talking about two classic films in the vampire genre, as well as, arguably, blaxploitation.
The genesis of the modern superhero film, unfortunately, as well as, just some straight up good ass action movies. And of course, we're talking about Blade, the Blade series, Blade and Blade 2, not Blade 3, because Blade 3 is really, really bad, and we're not going to talk about it that much.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. You told me not to, so yeah. I didn't. I gotta say, I've been sick with the flu. Like, I look like a vampire that hasn't turned yet right now. No one can see me, but when they just look shitty.
A ghoul is the term.
Okay, yes. I've been looking a lot like a ghoul, so I probably just need to feed, and then I'll look and feel a whole lot better. But I watched these movies when I was kind of feverish, so that it definitely added, like, a little extra spice to my nightmares that night.
I'm happy that you got to watch these, especially while having a fever dream, because the Blade, anybody who listens to Struggle Session knows that the Blade films, Blade particularly, is one of my favorite films of all time. I watched this film came out when I was in high school, like the week of my birthday, and it changed my life, going into the empty movie theater and watching this R-rated superhero flick with a badass super black superhero just killing the shit out of a bunch of white vampires for 2 hours. And I loved it then. I love it now. I think it still holds up. And I also think if you're a socialist, this is possibly one of the best metaphors or parables you can get for how capitalism works, how people buy into it, expecting to get a reward and it doesn't come to them, and how the only real solution is to kill all the fucking vampires who run the world. Well, let me ask you, Jamie. So, did you like it?
Oh, hell yeah! I thought it was great.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love showing people this movie. I feel like it got forgotten, or it actually really got erased when Black Panther came out and Marvel, Disney were telling everyone that it was the first black superhero movie. It really pissed me off because, I mean, besides, erasing something like Blank Man, you're also erasing Blade, which is, which was, one of the first, like, really good, serious kind of adult superhero films. I think it's a lot more adult and better than the ones they're putting out now. And Wesley Snipes, my God, did such a fantastic job embodying this character, creating this character, because if you don't know, the Blade from the comics was kind of fucking whack, really. Like, Wesley Snipes came in with his own interpretation that made the character so much cooler, so much more relevant, and the look and the feel of this film, it feels very, late 90s, but still looks cool today, similar to like The Matrix,
Yeah.
And a lot of people see Blade and see the trench coat and the all black and like, oh, The Matrix just stole all of this and gave it to Keanu. And more or less, yeah, like this is what this film has, style, character, emotion, politics, all of it. I just love. So I'm glad you got to watch it.
Me too. I love any like late 90s cyber goth vampire movie. I think it's pretty cool. And it's very clear to me how much The Matrix was influenced by it. Because it came out like the next year, right?
Yeah, it came out like the next year, yeah.
Keanu Reeves is doing cultural appropriation. This is not okay.
My God, this is the most black movie mainstream movie that's ever been. I think it's blacker than Black Panther, really, because it has multiple black characters.
I know. I was going to comment on how rare it is to see a vampire movie with more than one black character in it, but I guess you could say that about most mainstream movies.
Yes. So let's get into it. So, I mean, you guys start with the opening scene, this unforgettable scene, Blade's mother bleeding out on the table while she's pregnant with him, suffering from a vampire bite. And that's all the origin you need. That's all the origin you need. It takes about 90 seconds, and it's very memorable, and it tells you everything you need to know about Blade. Most of these superhero movies, they'll spend the whole movie explaining the origin of the character. It's like, no, his mother was bitten by a vampire. He got some of the powers, and now it's time to kick some ass.
Makes sense to me.
And so you get the blood rave scene, which, as somebody who's been to a lot of raves, I think I might not have become a raver if it wasn't for seeing this scene in high school. I never got to go to a blood rave, but I got to go to a lot of parties, a few that played the New Order remix of Confusion that played, and it's so perfect. It's like such a cool late 90s thing. But then when the blood starts coming down and it turns, and you see the fear in the one human's eyes, and then Blade starts coming and the music slows down and Blade walks up and all the vampires are fucking terrified of this big scary black man. I love it so much.
It's very cool, but I think we need to back up a little bit and note the fact that Tracy Lords is in
Tracy
this movie.
Lord.
Like she starts it off by luring a guy. For those of you who don't know, Tracy Lords was famous for being an underage porn star. It cost the industry millions of dollars to pull all of the movies that she was in, which is fucking hilarious to me. But after that, she became, I would say, kind of like a B movie actress. Is that fair? She was in Crybaby by John Waters, and she plays these kind of like femme fatale roles.
Yeah, she had a pretty decent career as a B movie actress, but it's really nice that she won. And it's nice to see her playing playing the vampire in Blade, who lures this poor guy. I forget the actor's name, but he's in The Shield. He plays a guy named Lim, and he's just kind of in The Shield too. He's kind of like this kind of doofus, like big oaf, and he gets lured into this den of vampires, and he's like, holy shit! And the only one there to save him is, of course, our man Blade, who proceeds to wreck the hell out of all these vampires in the absolutely fantastic action scene. Maybe the CGI doesn't look as good as your Infinity War right now, but it was good for the 90s, and I still think it's fine. And the action is just so good in this, just because Wesley Snipes actually knows fucking martial arts. So you really get tons and tons of like good just fighting scenes in it.
It's very impressive. I also think that Prodigy's Smack My Bitch Up really adds a lot to this fight scene.
Yeah, the soundtrack is so cool. It's all this, late 90s electronic music that just this tiny thing you want to hear during the action scene. Like now they always play like an ironic rock pop song from like the 70s now you're supposed to be laughing with the characters at the actions. Like, no, Blade wants you to know that this fight scene is badass, Blade is badass, this movie is badass.
Hell yeah. I also want to note like just the utter decadence and depravity of having blood sprinklers at a rave. That would be like if people had like champagne and caviar just like coming out of the sprinklers just to like dance around in, just because we're fancy and we can.
Well, that's part of the Blade mythos, the mythology, because the vampires in Blade's world run the world. They're the oligarchs and the capitalists. Now, there's different levels to the vampires. The vampires at the rave are kind of lower level. You see them, there's more, minorities. They're young people. They're the, kind of the vampires that are kind of at the bottom of the totem pole, but they're still, have wealth, above any human, and they're at the at the base of the power of the vampires that run everything.
Oh yeah, and that whoever threw the party and like made the blood sprinklers happen is probably like some big shit, big shot,
Yeah.
Like that's not something you see every day.
No,
or maybe when you're a vampire,
maybe when you're a vampire,
you live in a world of abundance. The world is your buffet.
It's just, well, you do kind of see that in this movie. We'll get to it later, but like all the times you see the vampires, they're just hanging out, being rich and opulent all the time.
Oh yeah,
like, they don't have day jobs. I don't think.
No, this is not a working class vampire movie like The Lost Boys or what have you.
Yeah, because it's inherent in the mythos. Like the vampires run the world; they are behind all the politicians. The cops work for the vampires. Like all the powerful people, like the vampires in the Anne Rice saga. They mostly stay underground. They don't involve themselves in politics or even capitalism, or really, they have
they're pre-capitalist.
Yes, yeah, they're pre-capitalist. Their wealth comes from like having a chest full of doubloons or some shit like that.
The feudal aristocrats. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not really, engaged with human society. What Blade says is no, if their vampires were real and they existed, they wouldn't be living in caves. They wouldn't be in the dirt. They would be in boardrooms all day or on, on rooftops in their Manhattan lofts or whatever. They would be, extremely rich, extremely wealthy, and just live these lives where they just go around and feed on humans every so often, to extend their life and, live this life. It's very explicit. It's just saying yes, rich people are blood drinkers, awful pieces of shit. They will tell you that they'll make you a vampire. You see the familiar characters, throughout the film who work, for the vampires with the promise of one day being made into the vampire, but that almost never actually happens.
Ugh, dead ass. They would be your boss. Vampires would be your boss. I mean, maybe they are already. Who knows? Yeah. You work for vampires. You just don't know it yet.
And so Blade busts up the raves, kills all the vampires. He tortures one. Now, I do have to say, Blade, the Jack Bauer torture, probably not cool, not the best look, especially post 9/11. But I think, is it okay? Is it ethical to torture a vampire knowing that they're on a hill?
Man, it's a vampire. You can do whatever you want to them. Fuck them.
Fuck him. Fuck the vampires. So he tortures his vampire, burns him to a crisp, but doesn't kill him because, of course, the cops show up and stop Blade from killing all these monsters who murder humans with impunity. I like that the vampires called the cops in the first scene. They're being hunted by a vampire hunter, so they call the NYPD to come and stop this scary black man who's attacking them.
Oh my God, it's like that lady. I'm picturing that lady who called the cops on those black people in the park for having a barbecue. Hello. Please.
Barbecue Beck. Yeah, vampires are some barbecue Beckys.
Oh my God. I didn't realize that they called the cops. I just thought the cops showed up.
Yeah, they must have. Yeah, they probably called them, because the cops multiple times try to shoot Blade in the back while he's running away.
Oh yeah,
the cops in this is some real fuck the NYPD shit.
Oh yeah,
in this film.
In that scene, I wrote down are they shooting him because he's black or because they think he's a vampire? Because to be fair, he is dressed like a vampire. But it really could be either with the NYPD.
No, it's because he's black. They don't shoot vampires. The vampires run things.
Oh, right. They own the police.
This doctor at the morgue gets bitten by the crispy vampire that Blade left over. And he goes to rescue her. Well, he doesn't actually go to rescue her. He goes to find the vampire that's still alive because he wants more information about what the vampires are doing. And he sees this woman has been bitten by this vampire, and he kind of just starts to walk away. It's such a good scene. You like hear her like heart beating while she's bleeding out, and he gets a flash to like his mother and how she died early on, and he decides, against his nature to actually try and rescue this woman who's been bitten by a vampire and is basically, already, dead meat, to him. But for some reason, he saves her. And then the cops spend like the next 3 minutes, like trying to shoot him from the back. Like one pulls out like a fucking machine gun. Like this, I love how bad this film makes the cops look. They're just murderous, like scumbags, like almost as bad as the vampires.
Word. Yeah, I mean, it helps that she is like a sexy scientist lady with the name Karen Jensen, right? Which, like, could they have given her a whiter name? Weird.
I really do think they probably, I mean, I can't imagine that they didn't intend to make it a white woman when they wrote this role. It would be shocking to me if they decided to have two black people in the film, but it's played by Mbuche Wright, who does a great job in this film. The only thing is kind of weird is that you would expect there to be a romance between her and Blade, but there isn't really. I guess Blade. So that's also, I think, a hangover from when they were initially wrote the film and expected to put a white woman in the role too. That's why there's no romance.
I feel like there is a little romance, but maybe it's sort of in
There's
the background.
Chemistry. There's
they're
chemistry.
Too busy, killing vampires and doing all that stuff to like really have a love story.
Yeah, there's definitely chemistry, but no explicit romance. And so we get to learn more about Blade, and his partner Whistler, who's this wizened old guy, played wonderfully by Chris Christopherson. And he kind of makes all of Blade's tools and weapons. It's worth noting that, Blade is kind of one of the first times you see this high-tech approach to vampire hunting, where he has like an ultraviolet beam weapon and like bullets with like infused with garlic, stuff like that. I think you see that so much in the past 22 years since Blade's come out, so people don't realize that it mostly kind of came from this movie.
Yeah, I thought that was one cool aspect of the movie. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about it sometimes when vampire movies get too like technical or scientific about what makes you a vampire or like the biology of vampires. But like, I guess it's cool. I don't know.
Well, let's talk about it because I kind of try to document on the show like what type of vampires are in each film, and I think there's a spectrum between like magic vampires and science vampires, and I think the Blade vampires are kind of on the extreme side of science, like so much so that they can walk in the sun if they wear sunscreen, enough sunblock, so they're very much a specific type of vampire that you can study in the lab and it would make sense. Like you can, like they're kind of just another species of human or of some sort, and even though there is some mystical elements at the end, these vampires, they explode when they get ultraviolet radiation because of, I think they actually explain it like the way that their blood processes hemoglobins or something. Their metabolism is so fast. That's why they can't go out in the sun. I think, and they're extremely allergic to garlic and silver. So these are vampires who are supposed to be, really flesh and blood. They're not changing into bats or werewolves or anything like that.
The way that the vampires are understood and the way that they're killed in this movie, where they're just kind of these animals, these creatures, these just like more like a monster than a person with feelings and motivations. It feels a little undignified for a vampire. But then I remember that the vampires in this movie are evil capitalists and they deserve to die and they deserve to be dissected and understood and, all of that shit. And I'm willing to accept it.
Yeah, that's kind of the point of the film. Like Brian from Street Fight pointed out to me, and his favorite thing about the film is that Blade just hates vampires. He doesn't give a fuck about them. He doesn't want to be, parlay with them. He has no respect for them. There's a scene with Deacon Frost, our main villain, where Deacon Frost comes and is like, "Hey, Blade, I really know a lot about you. I'm trying to take down these older vampires that are running the show. Why don't you make a truce and work this out?" And Blade just doesn't hear any of it. He says, "Frost, you are nothing to me but another dead vampire." He just does not give a single solitary fuck about any vampire life. Vampire lives do not matter in this film.
Which is a good thing in the context of this film.
Yes.
We're not dealing with vampire protagonists here. But let's talk about Deacon Frost.
Yes.
Which, by the way, is like the most late 90s name that I've ever heard for anyone.
Well, actually, that's a really old name. It's from this maybe late 60s, early 70s from the comic books. But Deacon Frost in the comic books is like, he's like a deacon. He's like an old guy with long white hair who kills Blade's mother. In this comic book, in this film, they made a big change to him. They made him like a young, hip guy, even though he is older than he looks. But I think I like Steven Dorff as the villain. I think he's a great character. He's probably one of my favorite action film villains.
Oh, yeah. Sidebar. At first, I thought that this was the same actor who played the ecstasy dealer in Go, because they're both kind of hot in that like gross late 90s way. But apparently, they're two different people.
Who is that? Was that Jay Moore who played the ecstasy
No,
dealer?
it was Timothy Olyphant.
Oh, Timothy Olyphant.
I just looked it up.
I think, you could definitely see some overlap between Dorff and Olyphant. Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. They were competing for the same vampire roles.
Yeah.
And hacker roles. I think vampires and hackers, pretty much. He's so cool. He just like smokes the whole time too. Like he gets called in before that vampire council.
Yeah.
And he just like sits there and smokes like a little shithead. I love it.
Yeah, you get a sense. So there's different levels to the vampires, right? Deacon Frost, they're like the nouveau rich, kind of fail son vampires. Well, not really fail son, because they're trying to bring back La Magra, the blood god, the originator of all vampires, in order to take over the world and turn everyone into a vampire. Now, my question is, Jamie, is, I kind of debated this with Brian from Street Fight. Is it kind of woke of Deacon Frost to want to turn everyone into a vampire? Make it all equal. Get rid of these class distinctions, because there's a class distinction in the vampires between whether you were born a vampire or whether you were turned a vampire. The people who were born a vampire existing, a higher, status than the people who were turned. And Deacon Frost is just like, well, fuck this. I'm just going to make everyone a vampire and it won't matter.
So I'm not quite sure how it'll cease to matter, even if he makes everyone a vampire. Because there will still be vampires around that were born vampires. They'll just be like a larger underclass of people who were turned into vampires. Also, I'm not sure how that would make sense for them, because if everyone's a vampire, whose blood are they going to feed off of? Like, he did not think this through.
Yeah, I don't. It's strange. Who knows? Maybe it's just about the strong. He doesn't say anything about like, and then only the strong will survive or some shit like that. He just, he doesn't really think his plan through. But given that he doesn't think the plan through, and he does sincerely believe this, is Deacon Frost possibly, another type of hero if he's just, trying to, fight against, this tiered class system?
I mean, he still thinks of humans as his food.
Yes.
But I guess if he wants to turn all the humans into vampires and make everybody equal, then I guess in a way he could be sort of a hot, stupid freedom fighter.
Yeah. But Blade ain't trying to hear that at all. He does not give a shit. So, I mean, there's so much in this film. I really just love this movie. And even though it's like a solid 2 hours, it's a very breezy, 2 hours. You have the plot where Deacon Frost is, fighting against the older vampires. And then you have, Blade on the hunt for Deacon Frost. And part of this hunt involves him, beating the shit out of a PD police officer, in a scene that I just can watch over and over again because, this officer is one of, Frost's familiars. He works for the vampires. He runs blood, for them. And, he's just a cop who works for the vampires. And there's no implication that, oh, he's a dirty cop or a bad cop. Like, no, he works for them because he's a cop and he wants, to be, a vampire someday.
Yep. That about sums it up. I also like the plot where, Deacon is basically breaking the vampire cabaret laws by having these raves. And they're really mad at him for doing it. And he's basically like, okay, boomer, and walks out. He's like, I'm going to bring back the ancient blood gods, whatever.
Yeah, he's definitely he's a pre-okay boomer guy. Because he's trying to mix up. He wants to have fun as a vampire. I appreciate that. His little, his cohort of like, ravers and club kids, including, Donald Logue as Quinn, who is just wonderful in this movie. I think this is the first time I saw, Donald Logue in anything. And he's just so good as like the vampire that Blade, tortures repeatedly. Blade chops off his hand twice. He just always comes back with like a shit eating grin. And he seems like a vampire who enjoys being a vampire, who really, takes, enjoys, the real essence of, unlife, and you just have to stand a little bit a vampire who's just not sitting around moping like Louis all the time.
Oh, yeah. I wrote down this quote from the end because it's hilarious when Frost and Quinn are getting stoked to, make the vampire apocalypse happen. He goes, I'm going to be a naughty vampire god. And I'm like, you know what? You go with yourself. I like it. He's feeling himself there.
Yeah, I love the one-liners in this film. They're so fun. It makes you forget that you used to get action movies with actual good one-liners instead of like a bunch of like weird improv stuff that going back and forth.
I feel like I interrupted you talking about the police. The police are so bad, and I love it so much, which is like fucking bootlicking little shits they are in this movie.
Yeah, you keep coming back to, shitty police officers, all the vampires, every time you see them, they're rich and opulent, and Blade just hates him. He's just on by himself. And he mentions, kind of like in the Matrix too. Matrix has this kind of similar thing where, you think he gives a little speech, to the doctor where he says, all these regular people walking around, they think they're not on our side. Like they think the world is one thing, but it's a completely other thing. And I, have to take this fight, alone against these vampires because none of these people would be on my side. The system is not on my side, even though I'm like a heroic figure and a good guy. I'm right. And they're literal monsters who run everything. Like I have to do it alone because most people, would try to join up with the vampires or just want the system to continue as it is.
Oh, yeah. And importantly, he also says, if you want to survive this world, you got to learn to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Which I knew you were going to like based on the other movies that you like, where the theme seems to be kill the ruling class.
Yes. I mean, of course, we're talking about this as film critics, completely allegedly a parody of what you should do in real life with no connection to real life, whatsoever. But I do like Blade's attitude where, everybody who's on it's us or them. It's us or them. And, we got to take them out. And there's more of us ultimately.
Pretty much.
Deacon Frost gets the upper hand, bites Whistler. Blade has to kill his father figure to complete his journey into full hero-dom. That's basic movie filmmaking, folks. Your dad always has to die.
Well, he leaves him the gun to shoot himself, which leaves enough ambiguity, so he might come back in the next film. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. But Blade's pissed. He gets all his weapons together, and the doctor, because she's I forget the name, a blood doctor,
A hematologist.
hematologist. Yes, she's able to create him a weapon that he can use that just explodes vampires. Basically, again, getting back into the science vampire thing. I do like the science vampire elements. I prefer science vampires to fully magic vampires ultimately, because you get so much cool stuff like turning vampires into exploding blood sacs by injecting them with the right chemicals.
Yeah, I'm still on the fence about it. It is cool. I'll give it that.
And so we get to the end. They want Blade because Blade is a daywalker. He's a half human, half vampire. All the strengths, none of the weaknesses, and he's part of a prophecy where they say they need the blood of the daywalker in order to bring forth the Lamaga, the old blood god. And so they bring him to this temple that seems to be just outside New York City.
These vampires have so much fucking real estate. It's insane.
But it's this massive old vampire temple
That they just like forgot about.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because Deacon Frost, even though he's this new vampire, he wants to shake things up and kind of actually go back to like some old ways. Like he's studying like archaeology and ancient vampires texts and all this stuff. So you could kind of look at him as kind of like a trad guy, like a trad cath guy for vampires, while all the ruling class vampires, they don't care about any of that stuff. They've perfectly integrated into human society and capitalism, and they just want to kind of rule things from the shadows, live in the shadows, enjoy their wealth, while Deacon Frost, he actually wants to go back to maybe a different, older way of vampirism.
Yeah, they're like, these vampires are like full neoliberalism, whereas he is some kind of vampire national socialist, maybe. Yeah. He's like a nationalist. He has egalitarian impulses, but also wants to bring back these old institutions that were very oppressive.
Yes. You see our doctor have to fight the ghoul of her former boyfriend / coworker. She has to beat the shit out of him. I think that was, there was always a scene in these older movies where they, the better ones, where they gave the woman character a chance to kick ass. And I really like that they gave her this one, because she didn't have to fight a full vampire. She just fights like this kind of weakling ghoul who was also like harassing her at her workplace. So it's like, she gets that double revenge.
Right. And doesn't she also kill another vampire too? Like maybe the girl vampire in that Great Delia's outfit. Am I misremembering this?
I think she
like
kills
the blonde
one.
Eurotrash one.
Yeah, I think she kills another one, but it's like a sneak attack. It's not like a straight up fight.
Right. Well, still cool. I mean, I always think that humans are the most badass in these movies because they're fighting, and even just being there is very dangerous to them.
Yeah, she maces her with garlic in the mouth.
Hell yeah, got her.
Blade, he meets his mom, who is, still alive, but a vampire and and completely evil, sadly. He gets drained of all his blood in this ceremony where they also, the nouveau rich vampires kill all the old money vampires, which is kind of cool, of them.
Yeah.
Shout out to Deacon Frost for doing that. And, they bring back the blood god, and you mentioned how there's some romance. There's this intensely erotic scene of Blade draining the doctor of her blood.
Oh my God, yeah.
Of draining, carrying of her blood. One of the sexiest blood drinking scenes in all of vampiredom.
It's so hot. She keeps telling him, like, don't stop.
And then she says, like, stop, but he can't control himself because, the thing about Blade is he doesn't drink blood. He uses a serum because otherwise he might, become, an inhuman monster. In fact, one of the worst vampires, because he doesn't have any of the weaknesses. If he starts going around drinking blood, then he would be the worst of all of them.
Yeah, good thing that human side of him also has a conscience.
Yes.
And he buys the serum. I wanted to ask you, like, this guy that he buys the serum from, apparently a black owned business.
Yes, I like.
But like, who is this? Like what? I thought people didn't know about vampires.
I think people do know about vampires. I think you're supposed to like he goes to a little like almost like a bodega, like a place you buy weed at. And basically, it gets him from a black guy and daps him up. Like that's kind of the scene where I really fell in love with the film because like, oh wait, there's a second black character. Oh wait, they know each other and there's a backstory and there's a culture there and they talk to each other like black men talk to each other. It's not, and it's just like cool and chill and it's just like nice. I really like it. Like he hands him a little vial of something. I think that's just part of the serum, maybe, and just a part he needs from the serum. And you can tell there's a warmth and a relationship there. They hug each other, and it's just kind of. I just like it. I just like that little scene that just adds a little bit of character to it. It also lets you know how Blade gets his money because he brings like the jewelry of the vampires he kills to him. It's kind of like he lets that guy pawn him for him, so that's how he funds his operation.
That makes. I was going to ask about that. Also, I don't know if there's a black version of the Bechdel test, but I was going to say this film definitely passes.
Yeah, the Blackdell
test, if you will. Oh yeah. I was going to ask what Blade's job is. I think that passed me by.
Yeah. So
he seems to have a lot of resources to spend on like cool weapons and capes and underground layers and stuff.
Well, they're guerrilla fighters. They make they have to take the what they loot from the enemy. Because all the vampires are rich, so you get a bunch of Rolexes whenever you kill a bunch of vampires, and
makes sense.
It works out.
Hell yeah. Fucking kill the rich, sell their stuff. This is parody.
Kill more rich. Kill the rich, buy more weapons, kill the rich.
Exactly. So okay, what do we have left here? There's like there's so much good stuff in this movie.
We really just have the end left where we have the the great scene where Blade, he's got the blood in him, he's back on the grind. He comes out and just starts kicking so much ass. Just straight up hand to hand combat. Before he even gets his sword back, he murks like 10 vampires and Dustin like one, he just straight up rips his throat out.
It's so cool. All the fight scenes in this are so cool. And then like for some reason, once he kills his mom, the vampires all like turn into bat skeletons and fly away.
Oh no!
I wanted to ask you about that.
No, the bats are from the ceremony. Are from this. The bat skeletons are strictly from the ceremony. That's none of the other vampires can turn into anything. That was from the ceremony where they're all all the older vampires get killed, and then they turn into bats, and then their power goes into frost.
Okay, that makes sense. I was a little confused about what happened at the end because there's a lot of stuff going on at the same time.
Yes, there is, and they had a couple of different versions of the ending. They had to redo it because originally La Maga was supposed to be like this big swirling ball of blood that Blade fights. Oh. You can actually look at the video on YouTube of the deleted scene. It doesn't look that great. They came up with a much better idea, which was to just have Deacon Frost, as he is, fight Blade, but every time Blade slices him, he's able to reconstitute himself. Basically he's become a vampire god by becoming immortal. Like the scene where Blade slices off his arm, slices him in half, and then he just, puts himself back together, and Blade said, Miles, what the fuck? It's just so good. So good.
It's so cool because you're like, oh no, he's invincible now. And then a second later, you're like, JK, no, he's not.
Yeah.
Because he gets exploded in a really gross and spectacular way.
Yeah, it's so good because, they bring back the new weapon that he's developed, which, they didn't have those type of weapons back when the blood gods walked the earth. And so Blade just tosses a bunch of the Explodo serum into Deacon Frost, and he explodes in a really gross, almost Cronenbergian way.
It's so cool. So yeah, then at the end, sexy scientist lady is like, "Oh, I can cure you.
Yes.
I can cure you now." And he's like, "No, it's not over yet. I need to stay the way I am so I can fight more vampires." And you're like, "Yes."
Yeah, make me a better serum if you want to help me. Don't try to cure me. But yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
Blade, the fight continues. It's not, it doesn't end for Blade. He doesn't, because part of the story is like, he's really struggling with the fact that he is half vampire, and the serum that he takes in order to not drink blood is kind of losing its effectiveness. And so the question is, what will happen to Blade? Will he, succumb? Will he try to cure himself as Karen did earlier in the film and stop being a vampire? And he chooses, the third option, which is keep me as I am, just make me a better serum so I can keep doing this because nobody else is.
It's nice to see Blade be so comfortable with himself.
Yeah.
Or even if he's not fully comfortable with himself because he hates being half a vampire, he's like willing to do it for the greater good.
For the greater good, to help everybody else out, to fight for us when we can't fight for ourselves.
I was wondering, like, what your take was going to be on the political economy of this movie, and I think you described it really well, with the vampires being capitalists, of course. So I was thinking about what was happening in 1998. We had the war on drugs, and most vampire movies have some drug metaphors, like the blood is the drugs, obviously. Yes. We have the credit crunch. Fight Club is also a late 90s movie that deals with this. And we have just the utter financialization of the economy going back to the neoliberal turn of the 1970s. But it really hit peak neolib in the late 90s. And at one point, I wrote this down, Blade even remarks that, like we talked about, the vampires own... He says they've got their claws in everything: politics, finance, real estate. They already own half of downtown. And that very much corresponds with what I understand about the rise of the fire sector, finance, insurance, and real estate as like a central part of the capitalist economy. And I guess that's redundant to say capitalist economy, but yeah. And just how much power was centered in those industries at that point in time.
Yeah, like, I do want to say, like, so Blade was written by a guy named David Goyer, who has written like a ton of superhero stuff since then. Almost all of it bad. Even Blade 3, which he wrote, is really bad. He hasn't written anything good since he did Batman Begins, The Dark Knight. He did all the Dark Knight films, or worked on them in some capacity. He's not really a good writer. I think it was more, the director and Wesley Snipes himself, director Stephen Norrington and Wesley Snipes himself, who were able to kind of shape this into a film that like holds up and lasts and but also, as far as like the critique of capitalism in this film. Like, I don't think David Goyer is a leftist, but as I like to say all the time, you don't really have to be a leftist in order to accidentally make a leftist film. I think Joker is another example, because basically what happens with Blade is like he thought about, what would vampires be like in the modern world? Who would they be? How would they act? And his summation was, they would just act like rich people, different types of rich people, from, bankers, to, their, bankers, shitty, kids, and they would all like act like rich assholes, and they would run everything. And that is a bad thing. And you don't really have to be like a committed, communist to understand that, like, being extremely wealthy and opulent, that's a universal sign of being evil.
It is interesting how even movies that are not made by leftists, like the rich, just come off really badly because it seems kind of self-evident.
Yeah, right? I mean, it's just the simple fact that why it's like if we were talking about, I don't, like any other like sci-fi thing where you just had a group of purple skinned people who ruled over a group of, green skinned people. The purple skinned people are going to be the villains in that story, just straight up. Like it doesn't matter anything else. You don't have to be a leftist. You can be the most right-leaning person in the world. If I tell you a story where a bunch of, purple skinned people, rule over, because of an accident of birth, a few people who were born with purple skin rule over a bunch of people with green skin and hoard all the resources, you would think the fucking purple skinned people are the bad guys. Like that's just a natural thing. And there's almost no one, no matter what their ideology, is going to, root for the purple skinned people who rule over everything. And you just extrapolate, you just look at that when it comes to any story you're trying to tell. If you're trying to tell a story that makes any kind of rational sense, rich people are going to be bad.
Yeah, and maybe by telling it as a vampire story, it's like a little bit safer to play around with those
definitely.
things. Like you probably couldn't have made a movie about just like a black guy who wants to kill rich white people,
Yeah, you probably could not do, and also
and
cops too, and cops too.
Oh yeah, cops too.
But yes, as radical as you may seem in your youth, most of us eventually succumb to the siren call of reform. And that brings us to Blade 2. Now, Blade 2, lots of people love Blade 2. Directed by Guillermo del Toro, Oscar-winning director now. Oscar-winning Guillermo del Toro. He was just a horror guy back then, but now he's an Oscar winner now. And this is a Blade film that proposes that the Blade that we met in the first film, who hated vampires more than anything in the world, just hated their fucking guts, wanted to kill every single one of them on sight, could be brought to team up with a group of mostly lovable vampire comrades in order to face a worse threat of, I don't know, disease or something. I don't really know what the new super vampires really are supposed to represent. Maybe you have a better metaphor for me, but it just seemed like this is like the reformist Blade film, Blade 2.
Yeah, I was surprised at how readily he teamed up with these vampires in this movie, considering how much he hated them in the last one and how much he was like, I'll never work with you on anything, back in that scene with Deacon Frost. Yeah. Where, by the way, Deacon Frost calls him an Uncle Tom, which I forgot to mention.
See, I like Deacon Frost. He's willing to go there. He's willing to, he's been around, he knows that would get to Blade if we piss him off.
Deacon Frost is a hotep for vampires.
Yeah, he's a hotep for vampires.
He's a vampire supremacist.
100%. But yeah, so in Blade 2, so there's a new strain of vampire called the Reaper virus, which makes super vampires who don't just eat humans, but also vampires too. And so the vampire team that was originally built to take out Blade actually come to Blade to get their help taking out the Reapers. And for some reason, Blade agrees to help them.
Like, okay, they describe what the Reaper does, and they describe how it like feeds off vampires, and when it's done feeding off vampires, it'll feed off of humans too. But like, I'm not sure. Like, that doesn't convince me that it's that much worse than vampires. Like, isn't it just another monster that he has to fight? Like,
I think the thing was that the Reapers are like a kind of an exponential and therefore existential threat, because the Reapers reproduce so fast, and their blood drinking is not under control. They're not going to do what most of the vampires seem to do, which is get their blood from a blood bank, which, doesn't reduce the human population or anything. The Reapers, they just drink voraciously when they're active and turn everything that they touch into a vampire. They don't clean up after themselves. And so the fear is that like you would have a planet of Reapers in short order.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. So Blade makes a deal with the devil.
Literally, he meets like this old as Nosferatu looking vampire. He goes to his lair and he just does nothing. Blade doesn't fight. He just walks straight up into the vampire lair and makes eyes at the sexy vampire princess.
Princess Nisa, yes, and her father, Damaskino. I guess we find out later that he's her father. I don't know. They fly in their vampire helicopter to meet him too, which I'm like, God damn, these vampires have so much money. Oh, and then he meets the Blood Pack or the Blood Squad or whatever, and they ask him if he can blush. It's like, whoa, microaggression much?
Yeah, they break into his lair, Blade's lair, just to show that they can, and then kind of parlay with him. It's just. We forgot to mention that Whistler came back to life before this. He was apparently still alive, but a vampire, and then Blade cures him in about the first 15 minutes of the film.
Yeah, and the pod that they're using to keep him alive, I don't know if you really see it in this part of the movie or later, but it definitely makes me think that this movie was influenced back in turn by the Matrix.
Yeah, he is kept in like this blood. Yeah, it does look matrixy,
Yeah.
This blood red liquid he's flowing in. Oh, we forgot to mention that Blade's new partner, since at the beginning of this film Whistler is dead / vampiric, is Norman Reedus as a Scud.
Just like an affable stoner cyber goth hacker, 90s movie type.
Yeah, just a very 90s guy. But I think this is the first time I saw Norman Reedus, instantly likable guy. It's funny to me that now his gimmick is to be like this, strong, silent, biker type, redneck biker type. When before he was always playing these really talkative, like kind of skeezy characters, like the guy who was like a fucking drug dealer type guy who's always trying to hustle you. He was really, talk, well, and like be comic relief and stuff. When in The Walking Dead, he's always the guy just like says, like goes around grunting and stuff.
I don't know. I mean, okay, I cannot watch The Walking Dead because I'm very scared of zombies. And actually, one of my issues with this movie was it's a little too much like a zombie movie for my liking. Like, I feel like I got tricked into watching a zombie movie thinking it was a vampire movie.
Yeah, so the Reapers are definitely a different type of vampire. Because aside from Nomak, most of them don't really seem to have like really higher cognitive functions. They don't talk, they don't hang out like all the other vampires. They just, walk around in dingy clothes, like crawling on the ground and feeding. So the vampires, they don't have the personality that the vampires in the first one have. And they just, it is more like a zombie type, animalistic vampire than these fully developed vampires of the regular vampire type. The Reapers are just basically animals.
Yuck.
/ zombies.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this about me, but I am very scared of zombies. Fun fact, I literally cannot watch any like serious zombie shit because it will give me horrible nightmares.
Why is that? Since you love vampires and spooky stuff so much.
I don't know. I mean, that might be a question for my therapist. It's very weird. Ever since I saw 28 Days Later as a teenager, and got really scared to walk to the parking lot afterwards. Like I can watch them and enjoy them. I'm not a child. But then at night I have horrible nightmares and it's just not worth it.
Oh, okay. I can definitely see that. Yeah. Yeah. In a lot of ways, the Reapers, they will trigger you if you're afraid of zombies too.
Yeah, trigger warning.
You know, a lot of people love Blade 2, right? They say it's better than Blade 1. It's not. It's not.
No.
No
Come
way.
on.
But it
People
is.
say that, really?
Yeah, a lot of people like to say
Damn.
it. I don't know why. But it is enjoyable. It's good. If you like Benicio del Toro of that era, Hellboy 2 era, Benicio del Toro, there's lots of good stuff here. And it's like a good action movie, but it is just, Blade teams up with the vampires. They share a little bit of a banter. Then they go and hunt the Reapers, in pretty cool fight scenes, but what I'm saying is there's really not much plot to this movie. It's a nice watch, but there's not a ton going on. It's just like, kill these vampires. Okay, Blade kills all these Reaper vampires, and then the vampires he was working with turn on them.
Yeah, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, of course. We should mention Ron Perlman as Reinhardt, the leader maybe not the leader, but seemingly the leader of the Blood Pack. I got a question. Do you buy Ron Perlman as a vampire? Because I honestly never have when I'm watching this movie.
This was my first exposure to him, so yes.
Oh, really? This is the first time seeing Ron Perlman?
Like, I don't know. I don't know a lot about movies and actors in general.
Okay.
So if I have seen him in anything, I'm not aware of it.
Okay. All right. Well, he played Hellboy in the first two Hellboy films. He's also in Sons of Anarchy as the father figure. But yeah.
See, I've never watched that. I liked him. I bought him as a vampire. I also liked some of the really cheesy lines he got to say.
Yeah.
Like, listen, shit kicker, you're about one cunt hair away from hillbilly heaven. I was like, oh no, you didn't.
I do like the character, but I just don't buy him as a vampire. I think I would have liked him a little bit more if he was just like a badass human servant, more than a vampire.
Yeah, fair enough.
In fact, it wouldn't made a lot of sense for the Bloodback to all be humans, since they're supposed to be, hunting Blade, which means, maybe they want to go out during the day too to try to find them.
Yeah, I don't know, but then we couldn't have the plot points later when a bunch of them get killed by the sun.
Yes, we could,
or whatever.
Yeah, but there is a really good action scene in the tunnels, where they're just swarming Reapers, that Blade blows up with these new ultraviolet light bombs that he has.
Those are pretty cool. I'll give it that.
Yeah, I think the strength of the movie is just kind of watching the action scenes, because a lot of I don't know, it's just I really enjoy this film, but it doesn't have as much to say to me as the original Blade does.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also got a little bit bored by the end, and not for lack of action sequences or whatever, but I don't know, there just wasn't that much to hold my attention. Although it was cute and sad in the end, I guess, when there's some convoluted stuff with Nisa and her family, or whatever, and eventually she gets bitten by the original Reaper.
Yes, who is her brother.
Yeah.
He turns out to be her brother, therefore the son of the vampire lord that Blade has been working for. They created the Reapers because they were trying to create a type of vampire that could survive being staked or going possibly even surviving in the sunlight. They're trying to build a better vampire. And
they're playing God.
Yeah, and they end up, thinking that they're going to harvest Blade and his blood to improve the formula and make a better type of monster. So there's another brutal scene of Wesley Snipes being drained of all his blood again.
Not again.
And eventually he breaks out. He falls in a really cool scene, he falls into a pool of blood that they just happen to have in the vampire lab, very conveniently.
Why would they not have a blood pool? They're fucking vampires.
Gets his strength back, and again we're in fucking full on Blade mode, where he just goes around wrecking shit, including doing a full-on vertical suplex to a vampire.
A what now?
A vertical suplex. Okay, Jamie. Vertical, where he picks up, he kind of gets in the front of the vampire. He lifts him up into the air straight up vertically and then falls back. It's a old school professional wrestling move. And you love to see that in a action movie.
Yeah, I mean everything was cool. All the fight scenes were cool. I'm not trying to say Blade 2 isn't cool. It's just not as cool as Blade 1.
No, it's not. Blade fights all the vampires, kills all the vampires, including Ron Perlman, who has stolen his sunglasses. You have to know, if you're a vampire in the Blade universe, don't take his sword, don't take his sunglasses. Ron Perlman makes the mistake of taking both, ends up paying for it.
Oh yeah, that happened in the first one too.
Yes.
Like Quinn took his cool sunglasses and then at the end he got them back and it's like, all right, it's really on now.
Yeah. And so we get the ending where Nomak deals with his daddy issues. He bites his sister, therefore, turning her into the Reaper. And because he's pissed off that he's been changed into this monster, basically, even like you kind of are meant to feel sorry for him, but like he was just a vampire before this. He was just killing people, and now he was turned into a super vampire, but it's not really working out for him because he's constantly hungry, and so that's why he's angry all the time.
Yeah, and he's gross now too. Don't forget.
Yes.
Sexiness is very important to vampires.
Yeah, he was probably a very hot-looking vampire, and now he's a hot mess. And so, and he kind of gets into this death fight with Blade, where he almost like seems to want Blade to kill him because he's fulfilled his purpose. He's gotten revenge on his family, and they have a pretty good fight scene where Blade does eventually kill him with the broken blade of his sword.
I looked it up on Wikipedia when I was trying to remember the plot of this crazy movie, and according to Wikipedia, he kind of finishes the job for Blade.
Yes, he does. Yes. Yeah, Blade, because he has that the heart covered by bone, and Blade, gets it almost in there, and then he pushes in because he doesn't want to live anymore.
Sad.
And then Blade holds his new vampire girlfriend, Princess Nissa, in the sunlight. She's been bitten by the Reaper, so she's gonna more or less die anyway, and he takes her out to see the sunrise.
Yep, she does not want to become gross like her brother.
And that's the end, the kind of sad end where Blade, the end of it is Blade feeling sorry for a vampire that he might have fallen in love with. And I just don't... Yeah, it's just, it doesn't give you that same feeling where he just fucking hates the vampires and wants to take them all out. But it's a good movie. I enjoy it. I definitely think it's worth watching. I'll watch it again too. Ends on the greatest song in the world, "Eye Against Eye" by Massive Attack with Mos Def. Great ending, especially since he goes to Russia to find this vampire that he's been hunting the whole film. This kind of skeezy vampire who's at like a fucking peep show, and Blade comes and attacks him there.
Oh yeah, the London Peep Show sets it up very nicely to have more action. Whatever's going to happen in Blade 3, which I'll never know because I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah. Blade 3, I'll give you a brief summary. Dracula gets brought back, but he's just like a big buff guy from Prison Break. There's a scene where like Dracula and Blade fight over a baby, like an actual baby.
No. Oh no.
Like what else is there? Piper Perabo is like the main protagonist, along with Triple H, who is this big wrestler and not a very good actor. The main problem with it though is that in Blade 3, it's called Blade Trinity because they have two other characters that they're trying to replace Blade, actually replace Wesley Snipes with, Jessica Biel and Ryan Reynolds. They bring in these two, white vampire hunters, in hopes to kind of spin them off, so that they wouldn't, have to keep, bringing Wesley Snipes back. Apparently there was the production of it was very troubled. I think Wesley Snipes was very unhappy with the script and the fact that they chose, with an original choice of the director. And they chose Dave S. Goyer, who Snipes also protested. There just was not, like, he hated being on the set. He kept his sunglasses on like the whole time and didn't want to take them off for scenes or all scenes or anything like that. They actually had to use CGI to take off the sunglasses and open his eyes in the scene that Wesley Snipes refused to open his eyes while he was watching it. He just really hated doing this movie, and I can see why, because it was a really bad movie. It was a really bad movie meant to basically write Wesley Snipes off and bring in these new white vampire hunters that they were going to do a Night Stalkers series with. But it didn't work out because the film, a lot of people didn't really watch the film.
Sounds pretty bad. Maybe I'll get really stoned and watch it some night when I'm better from my sickness. Yeah,
you get, if you want to see Blade fight a few more cops, that's probably the best thing in it. But it's really not. It's not worth anything. And it's really sad too, because the original idea for the Blade, the third Blade film, was for them to say, "Fuck it, the vampires have taken over entirely the world. All the vampires openly run things. Humans just live as like fucking cattle, and this old man Blade going out there in this post-apocalyptic nightmare world trying to take down the vampires at the end." Now that sounds cool, but this what they gave us was something much, much, much less interesting.
Well, at least we have Blade 1 and Blade 2.
Yeah.
We'll always have the first two Blades.
Yeah. So Jamie, how would you score these?
Oh man, I really liked them. I liked Blade 1 better, of course. I would give it like, what's the scale? I feel like we change it every time.
Yeah, we do change it every time. So out of 10 dead bloodsuckers.
Out of 10 dead bloodsuckers, I give it a 9.
Okay, whoa.
The first one.
Yeah.
The second one, more like a 7. Like, I'll watch it, but it's maybe not the best movie I've ever seen.
I'm gonna have to agree. I possibly would give Blade a 10 just because I love it. So it just really important film for me. And then Blade 2, yeah, definitely a 7.
It has been written. That's what it is. Blade 2 is a 7 forever. Blade 1 is a 9 or maybe a 10.
Yes.
Be advised, people.
All right. That was Vampire Castle. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Have a fantastic month, and we'll see you again real soon.